Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 732 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. And, well, it looks like it's a grayish day here at the Beaver Lodge because I see absolutely no blue in the sky. Maybe we will get some sunlight later on, but right now it is gray. And yes, thank you, kids and cubs, for letting me know that we have audio for our listeners. Again, still the same tech troubles as yesterday. But this time only took me 3 takes and 47 minutes to get the show started, as opposed to 7 takes. I think it was, God knows how many, and an hour and a half. So getting better at this, but yes, I'm going to have to give a little call to Mr. Grizzly to see if we can figure out why it is. After having done the O show with Laura on Friday, my microphone no longer connects to Restream because I can't explain it. I do not know, and I am somewhat tech limited, unfortunately. Mr. Grizzly is my go-to person for that, but we've MacGyvered it, and we have figured it out for now. So we are all together, and that is what we're going to focus on, the positive. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and not with me, as usual, is the aforementioned Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Oh, kids and cubs, we have a show for you today. Hopefully we'll be able to get through all the material given the late start, because I am expected somewhere later this morning. But we will talk a little bit about an announcement made in Newfoundland and Labrador that also is rather strategic, given that there is an election coming on the rock, and you will notice in the clips that there's a little bit of pre-election positioning going on here. We'll also, if we have time, talk about Danielle Smith finally getting back to us in a few hours about her book ban. And on the international scene, there is some rather big democracy news coming from Japan, France, and Norway. So we'll go Beaver International for a little bit and talk a little bit about those again if we have time, given the late start. Kids and cubs, I'm not sure if I thanked our podcast funding sponsors. If we did, that's okay. They're nice to us, so we'll do it twice. The Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Thank you so much for all of your support. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health doing today? Yeah. Still pretty good. Yeah, yesterday. Another reason for the slightly late start, I should say. Yeah, it only took me 40 minutes to get it today because I had placed a phone call to Telehealth Ontario last night because the situation with my skin was looking very, very weird before going to bed, and I couldn't tell if that's what it kind of looks like when it gets better or if things were actually getting worse. And the call came at around the return call came at around 6:40 this morning. So just wanted to make sure, and I'm probably going to have to go take another visit to the urgent care clinic after the show today, just to be sure. So yeah, things seem to be clearing well in certain parts of my body, and in other parts of my body, things are rather red and inflamed. So I was just a little, kind of had a little bit of a tingling sensation yesterday at some point. So they want to make sure that I'm not developing some type of reaction to the topical cream that they've given me. So I probably have to go back because if it is the start of an allergic thing, well, with every exposure, things can get worse. So I've been told not to put any more on until such time as we can actually figure out what if there is something or if things are healing like they should and all that good stuff. But we'll keep you posted. But like I said, it is improving. I was getting a little worried over the course of the weekend because it was starting to appear on my face, and those appeared to have gone away. And um, I'm not particularly vain, but I think I might have been too vain to do a show if it was showing on my face, because it is not pleasant to look at in any way, shape, or form. But fortunately, that did not happen, and yeah, just concerned because of the tingling in particular. Whenever something's tingling, I had some tingling on my upper palate and on my lips as well as some of the spots where there are sores. But the fact that there was some tingling in spots that were no sores uh, put the little light on, going, maybe something about this is not normal. So I decided to call and check just to be sure. But again, as we mentioned a couple of days ago, talking about government services that work well. If you live in Ontario, Telehealth Ontario, you can apparently the I didn't know this yesterday when I called because the last time I called Telehealth Ontario, which was quite a while ago, there was a full 1-800 number, 188 number, and now you just have to dial 811 if you live in Ontario, and you can be connected. So there's a bit of wait time. There's somebody that does an intake and takes some information, and then they send it out, and a nurse will call you. So it's for non-urgent situations, of course, where you have like a little bit of time to get a consult. If there's an emergency, don't wait for telehealth nurse to call, because like for me there was a 5-hour wait before somebody called back. But I was able to get information that has given me peace of mind, and I have a course of action. So. Um, Again, sometimes government works well. There you go. All right, kits and cubs. Let's take a little look into the magic monitor, and then we'll just get right into it, won't we? Okay. I am looking here, and I see Kit Tabby G, Kit Elaine, Kit playing with 3Ds with us. So it's Kit Grace and the Breens. We have Kit Chris with us. So happy to see him here. And who else we have? We have Kit Christian. Yes. Sorry, you're gonna have to miss most of the show. That's again our bad at this end. We have Kit playing with 3D with us. I believe I said Kit Tabby G, but if not, hello again. I mean, if I have, hello again. We have Kit Uncover celebrating the fact that while we were doing the show yesterday, we had crossed 22,000 near the end of the show, and now my counter is now showing 22,100. So a lot of subscribers over the last few days after not having an increase in subscribers for about a week or so. Not sure if Mr. Grizzly purchased more advertising or whether or not this is just organic, but welcome, anyone who's come here. Pull up a log, stay a while. Glad to have you. We have Kit Linda M here. We have saying good morning. We have Kit PNC Bio say try unplugging it and plugging it back in. I actually thought of that after I disconnected from the first one. Maybe if I just unplug the mic and replug the mic back in and do a second test, that might have worked. But I didn't want to try a take 4, so I just went for what I knew worked. But yeah, maybe later this afternoon, if a few of you are available, I might try jiggling some stuff and do a test. And if some of you are available, you can check in and let me know if it's working. Because unfortunately, for me, from my end, I can't tell. I need you to tell me. All right, we have the Breens with us. Good morning to you. Kit Nona Carol is here as well. Kit Swanky Frankie, hey, hey, hey. Nice to see you, my friend. We have Kit Jenny, which is a new name for me here on the chat. I don't know if you have been here for a while, but it's the first time I noticed it. So welcome to you, Kit Jenny. Thank you for joining us. And we have Kit Cassie with us. We have Kit Mohan. Hello, and hello to the entire family. And that's everyone I got for the moment, kids and cubs. Yep. So good morning to all of you. Hope you are having a beaverific day. Okay, now let's get into the stuff. We talked to you yesterday about the Prime Minister announcing pretty much an industrial reset, so an entire strategy. There's been a lot of questions surfacing as a result of it, and other decisions with regards to the Prime Minister's commitment to climate action. He says that he hasn't abandoned it, but he's looking to reframe it in the context of climate competitiveness. So it hasn't been explained a lot. It seems that there's going to be an announcement coming as to what that is. But if I'm rubbing a couple of brain cells together and using some powers of deduction, I would speculate that it has something to do with, for example, in the choice of projects that will happen. There'll probably be some stuff like, for example, high-speed rail. There might be, EV charging infrastructure. There could be, in making the renovations to the ports, things using equipment and materials or whatnot that might be greener. There could be the wind projects off the coast of Nova Scotia. So, I mean, you could see some things there. But it seems that in terms, rather than talking to people about the environment as if it is a moral obligation, which the Prime Minister is on record of saying, it is a moral obligation, but it needs to be framed more in a context of how can us doing the right things on all matters green provide us a competitive edge over other people. So trying to talk environment, not for the nobility of it, but just for making the good business sense, how it gives us an edge. And hopefully that will bring more of the center right or resistant right side along on this journey that we are doing. Also, probably more focus on things that the consumer can do. So, for example, if they do, and looks like they will do that with regards to the EV mandate, bring back some incentives to help people buy EVs, because as we noticed yesterday on the show, if the reason why the fund still does not exist for incentives is because it ran out before the deadline, then one would suspect that there is indeed high demand and high desire for it. But if there's an incentive, or people expect that there is going to be an incentive, then they're going to wait. They're going to delay purchase until it comes back. So maybe, like I said, return of incentives, and maybe even more robust incentives, or incentives in collaboration with provinces who might offer their own in that sense. But however that shows up, that's going to be there. So. And maybe things like we had for us, more loan incentive programs for people to do GHG reducing renovations for their homes. Of course, it seems that the industrial side of the carbon tax, which this government wants to focus on more rather than the consumer side, is something that is, according to the Prime Minister, rather non-negotiable, despite all conservative repeated demands to scrap it. Apparently, that is not going to happen. So it seems that on the environment, the climate front, it's not necessarily that there will be less action, but there'll be different types of actions. The focus will be on different players, and I'm going to get the sense that like I said, it will be in the choice of the projects. It'll be maybe requirements for choices of materials, incentives to Canadians to be able to make better choices themselves, to empower people, to give them a sense of ownership of what's going on and a sense of buy-in and all of that good stuff. But yeah, so probably not a diminished focus on it, but a reoriented focus, a repackaged focus on it, and probably something that is not going to be uh, touted or talked about much other than in the context of how it makes us more competitive or gives us an edge or gives us a favorable positioning in some way, as opposed to the, we need to do it for the future of our children type thing, or we need to do it because it's the right thing. Um, so appealing to wallets and pocketbooks rather than hearts, minds, souls, and good intentions. So there might be a reorientation on that. Now, of course, we have to remain vigilant because we don't want to see any slippage in that domain. But it would seem, from what I can gather at the moment, that there's no less commitment. It will just be a tactical shift in the manner in which it's done and the manner in which it is promoted. Stay tuned. But in the series of announcements was also announced an increase. It was announced that in March, let me rephrase that. We were reminded that in March there was announced that with regard to tariffs, there was going to be some type of regional tariff relief program, and the federal government had earmarked $450 million for that. On Friday, we found out that that fund got boosted to $1 billion. And the Prime Minister, as we mentioned yesterday, had something on his agenda, being in Newfoundland and Labrador. And it seems that what it was announcing the first tranche, as the word comes in, or the first slice of that $1 billion. And that would manifest itself in the form of about $80 million that was announced yesterday in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I'm going to show a couple of clips from that press availability. And of course, we have to understand that in October, I'm not sure if the actual date is going to be October 14th. I'll have to double check on that because it hasn't been announced yet. Actually, yeah, it probably isn't, but there probably is a deadline date by which it must happen, that there is going to be a provincial election in Newfoundland and Labrador. As we had mentioned on some previous shows, the previous premier, Dr. Fury, had stepped down, and John Hogan had come in as interim premier, and he is the one who we're going to see speaking first here in these clips. And you will, the premier of Newfoundland and Labrador happens to be provincial Liberal. Prime Minister of Canada is a federal Liberal. There's an election coming. All of a sudden, the Prime Minister is in Newfoundland and Labrador. Right? The Premier singing the praises of the Prime Minister singing the praises of the Premier. Here's some announcement of funding, probably days before the official writ is drawn for the election. So you can see, the chess pieces. How would I put it? It's a twofer, if you will. I mean, these announcements are coming. They have to be made, right? This has been in the plans, but there also happens to be an election coming up. So, what if we made the first slice of announcements from this big $1 billion fund in Newfoundland and Labrador in the week, probably, that the election will officially be declared? Wouldn't that be convenient timing? So, I mean, in communications, as a communications person, if you ever have the opportunity to couple an announcement that you were going to make anyway in a manner that could be particularly beneficial to an ally or a colleague, well, why not? So there's a little bit of this going on, and you'll be able to detect it in the floweriness of some of the words being used to describe each other and to commend each other on recent accomplishments. So, kids and cubs, without any further ado, let's have a little moment here with the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador introducing the Prime Minister at said press availability.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Joanne for that warm welcome, and thank you, Prime Minister Carney, for being here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador today. I can say very confidently that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and Canadians are very supportive of you and your government and your vision for this country. I know what Newfoundlanders and Labradorians want now. They want calm, steady, sure leadership to deal with the issues that are facing us as a country and as a province. And Prime Minister, having gotten to know you over the last 4 months, I know that you certainly offer that leadership, whether it's issues with trade and tariffs forced upon us by our Americans. I know that Prime Minister Carney is the right person to come to a good deal, negotiate that deal, not at all costs, but a right deal for Canadians and for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And he will deliver that deal. And not a moment sooner, he will deliver that when the deal is right. And I have full faith in our Prime Minister to do that. And then I think about what the Prime Minister means for Newfoundland and Labrador. And I think we all share his vision that nation-building projects, getting people to work, building and rebuilding this country from coast to coast to coast is where we need to be as a country. And I'm happy to be there as a Premier, side by side with the Prime Minister, as we look at those projects. And as I said to him over the past few months, getting to know him, meetings one-on-one, that nowhere in the country has projects to offer like we have to offer here in Newfoundland and Labrador. If you want to talk about what it means to build a nation, look no further than Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador coming to an agreement to right past wrongs on the Churchill River in Labrador. And we've talked about day in and day out what that means for the provincial government and our coffers, over $225 billion. But what we haven't talked about is what that means in terms of economic spin-off, the job growth, job creation, not only for the mega projects, but for the mining industry in Labrador West, and what that means for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. That money and that economic spin-off will deliver funds for better education, better healthcare, and better infrastructure. And we don't stop there, of course. We need to continue to grow our oil industry here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I've had great conversations with the Prime Minister about our oil projects. Most importantly, the next one on the horizon, Beta Nord. And I know the Prime Minister supports us. I know he supports Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And I know he supports workers. I see a lot of workers here today from New Dock and other facilities. And it means so much to see everybody here today to support us and to support the Prime Minister. So as I said, when it really comes down to it, it's about getting people to work. It's about jobs, and it's about money in people's pockets. So I'm very pleased to welcome Prime Minister Mark Carney here to St. John's Harbour, to Newfoundland and Labrador, to talk more about what he will deliver for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Prime Minister.
Thank you, John.
All right. So, kids and cubs, in that you can see, right, the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador commending the Prime Minister, showing, expressing his confidence in his abilities to bring things about, and then, of course, mentioning a lot of things, saying that, he understands now what Newfoundland and Labradorians want, not saying that he didn't understand then, of course, because, he was a part of the government of former Premier Fury. But as Premier, you go about and you travel the province in different ways than you would if you were just a member of your provincial legislature or parliament, and picked up some things. He's developing his platform, I'm sure. So, saying that he understands now what people want, and talking about certain what Newfoundland has to offer, to, again, positioning with regard to that, pumping up the province, expressing confidence in its ability to contribute to projects of national importance, and, otherwise the growth of the Canadian economy, and talking about certain projects that he has in mind. Of course, the big one, which we had talked about previously, um, the deal between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec on hydroelectricity to, when he says repair the rights, repair the wrongs that took place in, I think it was the Churchill Falls development, along with a whole other thing, Baie du Nord project being added onto it, and thus providing some not only hydroelectricity security to the province of Quebec for probably the next 2 decades, but the potential to be able to export some excess energy to the United States as well. So there's a couple of good business cases there, and the Baie du Nord project, which is one that a lot of people who are placing some bets early on what could be some of the first announcements coming from the National Projects Office. We don't know how many will be on the initial list. We don't know to what degree they will go down, and we have been told that it is probably going to be a living list, a rolling list. So I'm not sure whether or not they're going to start like with just 2 or 3 projects that are the most likely, and then more of them are going to come at budget time, or whether or not there's going to be a long list right off the bat when they say that there's some projects that are going to be announced pretty soon. It seems that there are some that are even going to be announced before the budget. So I have this feeling that it won't be this type of thing where they're going to come out with one list and like, here's all the projects we're going to work on this year. It's probably going to be, here are the ones that we're going to start with, and there are more to come. And then there'll probably be some journalist questions with regard to that, and maybe some insights like we've been getting the past couple of days about what could be on the list or what seems to be on the list. But the Baie du Nord project specifically is one of the ones that a lot of people are suggesting probably would be endorsed first, if not on the very, very first unveiling that will be happening, let's say between now and budget time, right? Or even if you wanted to extend that between now and the end of the year, but let's say between now and budget. Clinton DeVoe, who's a person, an account that I follow a lot here at Clinton DeVoe on Twitter, had his list of the ones that he thought could be there, and he had the Baie du Nord offshore oil project in Newfoundland there as part of that, and of course the electric project between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is one, if you remember, at the First Ministers meeting in Regina. There was a journalist that specifically asked a question about that. Is that something that would be considered a project of national importance? And everyone around the table pretty much said, yeah, that's the type of thing that we're thinking about. And since that one is far ahead along already, because there already is the agreement between the 2 provinces, that looks like one that is ready to go and shovel ready. So that's another thing that will determine which ones are on the initial lists, is which ones. A lot of the ones that will be on the initial list are probably things that people have been working on for a while, but there was just that last little impetus that was missing, that last little oomph to move it from, maybe we're thinking about doing this, to actually, yeah, we're doing this. So there might be an announcement of something pipeline related in terms of preparatory, but I would doubt very much that like announcing a full pipeline would be one, unless again they are planning to announce some projects early that would have longer timelines as well, rather than ones that are just ready to go, and then you'll be able to point to in a couple of months and see some activity starting. But yeah, these are some very important projects to the province, and important projects to the nation, I have to say, but particularly to the province. And Mr. Hogan, when he came on board as the interim leader of the party, was particularly excited to do this with regard to the deal with Churchill Falls with Quebec, because he has a background in law himself. He's a graduate of Memorial University of Newfoundland. He's got a Bachelor of Science from there, and Dalhousie University. He's got his law degree from there, and was called to the Ontario Bar in 2004, returned to Newfoundland and Labrador, where he was called to the provincial bar there in 2005. And in 2014, he started his own law firm, WPH Law. And he had previously served on 2 occasions as an elected member to the Memorial University Board of Regents and as counsel to the provincial consumer advocate at the Commission of Inquiry respecting the Muskrat Falls project. So he was very excited about this, given his law background, to be able to hammer out, have the opportunity to hammer out the final details of this agreement with the province of Quebec. So he's definitely all in on this project and very excited about it. And you could probably hear that in the manner that he was talking about them a little bit in this. But I'm sure that this specifically is going to be a focus of the campaign, is bringing this particular project from agreement to the shovels in the ground phase. And that out of all the candidates for premier, he's going to attempt to position himself as the premier best suited to do that, probably using, of course, his legal background as a basis for that. He was also appointed Minister of Justice and Public Safety and Attorney General in 2021 of the province. So again, his legal background, I'm sure, in his legal prowess and bona fides, the members of the citizens, residents of the province will definitely have had a chance to evaluate already, given his time in the legislature. I'm not sure, is it the legislature in Newfoundland and Labrador or the Parliament? I actually do not know, or whether or not they're interchangeable. I need to. These are sometimes when I'm talking about provinces, I actually realize it. Sit there and go, are they MLAs or MPPs there? Or don't know. I'm having a feeling that MPP is pretty much only from Ontario and everybody else is an MLA. But I might be wrong on that. Maybe you can educate me, kids and cubs. That's something you'd think I would know, but for some reason I never actually took some time to think about it until really just now. But regardless, so you can see where he would definitely, for him, the Prime Minister coming to make an announcement of federal funds and them showing that they have a wonderful and good productive working relationship would definitely be something that would be beneficial to the interim premier. And I wouldn't be surprised if some images of this press availability or them together during this trip will somehow make it into some provincial election ads at some point down the road, because selling your ability to have good relationships with the prime minister, especially when he is very much in an investing mood and there's money to be invested that can come to the province, will certainly be also an element of the campaign. Which of the candidates believes or can make the case that they are the best to extract, for lack of a better word, the greatest amount of investment from Ottawa, or help in getting foreign investment into the province, will probably be something that yeah, this is a selling point. You might want to vote for me because I'm better at that. All right. So the Prime Minister is invited to come up to the mic to speak for a little bit. And in these first few minutes, you will see how the Prime Minister returns the favor, for lack of a better word. Because here, the Premier talked about some provincial priorities and pumped up the Prime Minister. So now the Prime Minister is going to come in and pump up the Premier a little bit and talk about some achievements and how impressed he is with them. So here we go. Kids and cubs, let's take a little look.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you, Premier. Wow, look at this. I came from Ottawa this morning. In Ottawa, there's the first hint of fall in the air. The leaves are starting to turn. Look, I should stay here. The summer, it's still the height of summer here in St. John's. You know, but this time of year, it's a chance to look back on the summer in the last few months. And you know, if there's a theme that shines through for this summer in Newfoundland and Labrador and across Canada, it's that we're stronger together. You know, you brought Canadians from across this country to the Rock for a highly successful Canada Summer Games. And I'm not just saying that because the NWT women's basketball team won their first game. I still have my allegiance from where I was born. But you think of all the great performances, including you know, on team level, at individual level, Gavin Baggs, 4 gold medals, or 4 medals in para sports for Newfoundland and Labrador. Yeah. So you did us proud. You did us proud in your hospitality, but we recognize that you were doing that at a very challenging time, in a challenging summer with a fire season, terrible fire season that destroyed property, displaced thousands and thousands of Newfoundlanders. And Premier Hogan, your leadership alongside the tireless efforts of the first responders, the Canadian Armed Forces, and Minister of the Canadian Coast Guard were invaluable in keeping people safe. I also noted over the summer the progress we've made breaking down internal trade barriers in Canada to help drive economic growth. And the federal government made good on its promise on Canada Day to eliminate all federal barriers within Canada to that trade. And the Premier has been working hard and leading with his provincial counterparts to ensure that in these challenging times, we are stronger together.
And there you see Kids and Cubs here, how the Prime Minister comes in and returns the favor, talking about you know, the province having hosted excellent Canada Summer Games, and they have in difficult conditions because there were wildfires, and you know, some not that far from the capital of St. John's. We have mentioned on the show about how a lot of the exceptional volunteer team were able to change venues on the fly, and people would just show up and help with that. So, like for example, when they had to move some lacrosse games from outdoors to an indoor arena, and then, you know, bring all the PA equipment and, you know, the equipment that would show the scores and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, they just, let's just make it happen. You know, make sure that the kids get to have their competition experience no matter what. And, you know, so, I mean, definitely that is to be commended. And of course, the response to the wildfires, of course. And then, of course, you know, with regard to the liberalization of trade between provinces and territories, talking about Newfoundland and Labrador taking a leadership role there. So again, right, pumping up some tires a little bit there. All right, and now we, so that's a lot of that's some of the strategic positioning and pre-planning here. But there's also an announcement, right? So let's take a little look at what the Prime Minister was there to announce. And unfortunately, normally, while I am talking in between those segments, I move the video forward. But this time I actually got more concerned with making sure I had eye contact with you while I was saying it, and kind of forgot to do that. But now it is taken care of. So let's see what the Prime Minister had to say.
Be here today to talk about the future at one of the oldest shipyards in Canada, and a shipyard that's now proudly owned, led, and managed by local Indigenous leadership. And I especially want to welcome and acknowledge Chief Terry Paul of the Membertou First Nation, Chief Jenny Brake of the Halibut. Jenny, who started her career here as a welder. And this is a testament to what we can all do. And Sagama, Chief Joe from the Mania Bugak. Now, this dock, as old as it is, 140 years, hardworking women and men from the dockyard, repairing and refitting legendary Canadian ships, from the Canadian Coast Guard icebreakers to the Royal Navy fleets. Let's stop and say a word about this. The Premier referenced building from coast to coast to coast. When you think about the building of the major projects here, the crucial project, and I'm so proud of the progress that's been made in Churchill between Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec. You think about the opportunities offshore this great province, including Bay to North. But you also look at these icebreakers and what they represent, unlocking opportunity in the Arctic and protecting our country, protecting our sovereignty. That's what building Canada strong means. So whether it's the Cape Roger, the Judy Lamars, they are vessels that protect our sovereignty. They're also vessels that unlock the winter ice, unlock the contribution of this economy to Canada's $30 billion ocean economy. And they're vessels that are vital for the research that allows us to prepare and build for the future. And in doing so, New Dock creates good, high-paying, fulfilling careers for our skilled workers, or welders, or pipe fitters, boilermakers, and the other skills, just as Chief Jenny knows. And we know that shipbuilding isn't just central to our history and our character, it's essential to our future. But that future, that economic future for our country, is caught up in a storm. Caught up in a storm as the United States fundamentally reshapes all of its trading relationships. And to be clear, Canada currently has the best deal of any of the United States trading partners in the world. 85% of our trade with the United States has no tariffs. It's tariff-free. And we have the lowest average tariff rate of any country. But we've learned a lesson over the course of the last several months, is that our relationship with the U.S. is changing. And we can't rely on our most important trading relationship as we once did. You know, we can't control what other nations do, but we can control our destiny. So we're focusing on what we can control and building our economic strength right here at home. C'est là notre mission principale, notre étoile de Nord. Le nouveau gouvernement du Canada.
So, a lot of setup in this particular instance to get to the point where he announces, unfortunately, I thought I had the timestamp where he was making the announcement, but I did not, sadly enough. So he has announced that businesses in Atlantic Canada, I'll just put myself back on screen there, will be able to access $80 million of $1 billion tariff relief that was set up by the federal government. Ottawa had set aside $1 billion for a regional tariff response initiative to help small and medium-sized businesses diversify their markets and adopt new technologies. The funding was part of a package of protectionist policies and tariff relief measures announced on Friday, as we mentioned. And Friday's announcement also included $5 billion to help companies pivot to new markets, keep skills and production in the country, and become more competitive globally with a Buy Canadian policy. And as we mentioned, talking about the rupture, and here you go, the Prime Minister in these comments, again, making the case, setting the stage for how things have changed. And he then goes on to say, when you have that big uncertainty that can paralyze decision-making, pull back investments, and stifle growth, this is not the time to delay and hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. Prime Minister said that the seafood industry will be eligible for the funding, which is being administered by the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. It says, for example, developing innovative packaging and product formats. Think in food processing and fishery, vacuum sealed lobster trails, flash frozen crab clusters tailored for high demand European markets. So that was what the Canadian press reported here, and that's relatively thin reporting, unfortunately. So if we go to the Prime Minister's actual, the Government of Canada's release on this specifically, again, not that much specifically, other than saying that $80 million in Regional Tariff Response Initiative money will be dedicated to businesses in Atlantic Canada, and support from the initiative will help industries across the region that have been most affected by tariffs modernize their operations, protect jobs, and unlock new opportunities for growth at home and abroad, including for the seafood manufacturing and steel sectors. So this is basically support offered for those sectors. Unfortunately, kits and cubs, when I took the timestamps, it was on the live thing, and then that has been re-edited down afterwards to take out the blank spots that were there, and the gaps, and which means the times have changed, so all my timestamps are no longer accurate. And since I don't want to go searching, have you watch me searching for the correct clip as this is going. I'm going to try to gracefully slide over to other topics. But it would seem to me, based on the relative thinness of these readouts and Canadian press articles, that, and this is my speculation here, that there wouldn't have been a great number of specific elements saying like, where's this $80 million will be spent on this specific thing, because I would assume at this point it's the money that's been awarded, and that the projects themselves may be yet to come. I'm going to take another look at something here to see if there was more looking at the Government of Canada newsroom site as well, just in case there was something else that I might be missing here. But that's about the major things that I can see at the moment. If there's more, I will bring you more, because we will be focusing on Newfoundland and Labrador a little bit over the next bit, given that there's an election coming. So I will definitely bring you more if there is. Now, there was another announcement yesterday that was very key to what the Prime Minister has been mentioning with regard to getting our financial house in order. As you know, kits and cubs, we are looking at a situation where the Prime Minister is trying to get us to think of the budget in terms of both, how would I say, capital spending and operational spending, and trying to get us to make a difference between both of those forms of spending. So he wants us to look at the spending that it takes us to run things from day to day, and that type of spending has been increasing at about 7% annually, which is more than the growth of the economy. So he's looking to make some reductions on that front, while at the same time, as he said, spend less to invest more, putting more money in the capital type projects that he is looking at, that he hopes will not only bring in investment dollars from the private sector to have that multiplier effect, but then be put into projects that are strategically chosen for their ability to generate even greater future economic activity. but he's going to have to find those savings at some place. So one of the things that he has to do is ask every department to come back. I think it is with having identified 7% cost reduction savings that could happen in their department by the end of for this fiscal exercise, 10% by the next fiscal exercise, and then 15% down the road. And of course, people are wondering if that means big cuts to programs. The Prime Minister has kind of made it clear that transfers to provinces and transfers to individuals are not on the chopping block when it comes to that. But just how deep will the cuts be? And we've had Wayne Long, who's the Parliamentary Secretary for Revenue, on some news shows yesterday, telling people to don't first assume that it means necessarily that there's going to be massive cuts. It could be just programs that are obsolete, a little bit of attrition, doing things more cost effectively, that type of stuff. And they might not be looking to go in and make, take an axe to things, but trying to see if with maybe, I would guess lots of little cuts here and strategic things and sunsetting certain things and all that type of stuff, whether or not they can reach that same objective. Of course, when everybody does these types of exercise, we try to start with the low-hanging fruit, but eventually some tougher decisions are going to have to be made. But in the process of trying to save some money, there was a push to, for lack of a better word, and I really hate this term, reducing red tape. I know what it means, and a lot of people know what it means when they talk about it, but it just becomes, it can become a buzzword. I noticed that with the Conservatives a lot. Their solution to everything is, well, if we only cut business taxes and reduce red tape, we'll be fine again. So, like I said, there is red tape, absolutely, and regulations and that type of stuff should be gone through regularly to see what doesn't serve you anymore and to make adjustments and that type of stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that. But how much can actually be saved, we don't know. But according to September 8th, the Canadian Press yesterday on September 8th, the federal government says it has found almost 500 ways to streamline regulations and cut costs through a 60-day red tape review exercise. Departments and agencies have published reports identifying measures to make them more efficient and eliminate complicated or redundant regulations or processes. Examples include a Canada Border Services Agency proposal to end the rule requiring that international transiting travelers be examined by the agency before making their way to their departing flight. Transport Canada is looking to introduce rules for transporting certain low-risk dangerous goods by drone, while the Department of National Defence says it plans to streamline the Canadian Armed Forces grievance system. Treasury Board President Shafkat Ali launched the red tape review in early July by asking Minister Tariff. Let's try that again. I'm tripping over my tongue. Treasury Board President Shafkat Ali launched the red tape review in early July by asking ministers to review regulations in their portfolios. Ali said in a media statement that a federal red tape reduction office under the Treasury Board will continue to work with stakeholders and regulators to move forward with the proposed initiatives. Quote, for example, the office will be engaging with partners and stakeholders to undertake horizontal red tape reviews, which will further eliminate regulatory barriers for business and deliver better and faster regulatory service, Ali said. Provinces and territories will also be engaged to support a collaborative way forward. The minister said the proposed initiatives could deliver some important benefit for Canadians, like faster access to new drugs. He said they will also support key economic sectors like transportation or agriculture by speeding up decision-making and streamlining processes to increase productivity. Quote, reduced red tape will support Government of Canada priorities like more efficient reviews of projects to drive economic growth and greater collaboration with trading partners to reduce barriers and help get products to market faster. Prime Minister Mark Carney promised the red tape review in his election campaign platform. Carney said in a statement in July that the government has a mandate to spend less and invest more. Quote, to that end, we will remove red tape by eliminating outdated regulation, he said. It's time to make government more efficient, make its processes more effective, and to catalyze more private capital so we can build the strongest economy in the G7. Bruce Campbell, an adjunct professor at York University and former executive director of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, warned in a recent CCPA article that the government's red tape review, quote, is bad news. Reducing red tape is invariably accompanied by fiscal austerity, including cuts to regulatory agencies, Campbell argued. Campbell pointed out that the review comes after Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne directed most ministers to find ways to cut program spending by 15% over the next few years. He said the review is also consistent with Carney's government Bill C-5, which allows it to fast-track major projects. The Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, which is responsible for conducting federal impact assessments of major projects like mines, ports, and dams, said in its red tape progress report that it is, quote, re-engineering its processes so that all projects can receive federal approval in 2 years or fewer. The agency also said it will continue to improve its use of artificial intelligence tools to facilitate faster analysis and document production. Quote, we've seen this movie before, Campbell said. Government efforts to root out so-called red tape regulations have a long history. This deregulation trajectory has often compromised public safety, at times with catastrophic consequences. Goldie Hyder, president and CEO of the Business Council of Canada, which released a report on red tape last week, said on social media Sunday that Canada, quote, is drowning in regulations. Again, I take a lot of what Goldie Hyder says with a grain of salt. Very closely linked to the Conservative government of Stephen Harper. So comments are often in line with the philosophy of that government. Hyder said the system has become bloated, duplicative, and slow. Quote, the cost? A smaller economy, weaker investment, and fewer jobs, Hyder said. In a time of geopolitical upheaval, there are many things beyond our control, but we can control our own rules and regulations. We can control how long it takes to build, expand, and invest in Canada. Being clever here, taking the Prime Minister's words and kind of using them against him a little bit. And when he says that, we can't control what other people can do, but we can control, we need to focus on what we can control. And Goldie Hyder saying, well, we can control this, so cut some regulations. Now, of course, business is always asking for regulations to be cut. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's a regulation that can actually be cut. But again, often when you talk about cutting regulation, you also mean removing citizen protections. So it can't just be any red tape. He goes on to say, regulatory reform isn't about cutting corners or compromising. It's about cutting duplication and designing rules that protect Canadians while also stimulating economic growth. Done right, regulation can be smart, competitive, and fast. And on that point, I do absolutely agree with Mr. Hyder. The problem is that if you're focusing only on duplication, then okay. But a lot of the case for cutting regulation is sometimes, well, this is just stupid. And then sometimes you tear down the fence and then you realize, oh, that's why we put the fence there. And then you have to put it back, right? So it's boring to talk about cutting red tape and regulation, and it's boring to talk about regulations. But they are the things that do keep us safe. Right, and they do add a little order and rigor and method to certain processes. So every time we talk about regulation, it's almost always in a negative term, and so it's nice to see Goldie Hyder say here, done right, regulation can be smart, competitive, and fast. And if that's what we're going for, solid recommendations, solid regulation that does protect Canadians, but can be done more efficiently, I'm all for it. Who wouldn't be? But then the debate just becomes between citizens who want protections and businesses who want to spend the least amount of money possible on providing protections and being able to agree that this particular regulation actually doesn't help anything either on making business operate in a more predictable, stable, and efficient manner, and protecting Canadians, protecting the citizens. But some progress on that front too. That's not going to get a lot of headlines. Not going to be sexy. There is no dollar amount associated to these cuts and regulations in terms of how much analysis of how much money that could lead people to save, how much the government might be able to save or generate an extra business as a result of doing this. There doesn't seem to be those types of calculations. So at the moment, it's just like I said, a red tape reduction process, and maybe there will be more to come with regards to dollar figures, and maybe this is just about process and not necessarily first about money. In that, however, when we were talking about the person from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives talking about austerity, the reason this is coming up is because in the question and answer period, I believe on Friday, when the Prime Minister was talking in French, he was asked a question about, would this be leading to austerity? And, he did say that, yes, there would be some austerity, austerity and investment going on at the same time. And for a reason I don't particularly know, I'm not familiar with, and I'm trying to keep my eyes and ears peeled for that. But in the province of Quebec specifically, the word austerity, austérité, has very, very, very negative connotations. In the rest of Canada, we talk about austerity, and you will have the usual suspects on the political spectrum going, "Oh my God, that means jobs are going to be cut. Oh my God, that means services are going to be cut." And and they do the awareness work with regard to that, and that's a vital part of our political process and our democratic process. But it seems that in Quebec, when you say austérité, particularly in French, there was who say in French, there's a corde sensible. There's if you imagine uh, your your inner feelings as being a harp with a whole bunch of chords. There's one string there when it gets plucked that is particularly sensitive, and that would be the case for austérité. And again, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I first heard it from Chantal Hébert on Peter Mansbridge's Bridge last Friday. Said, "Who, when you say that word," and it's like, wondering if the Prime Minister's team, which he does have a lot of people from Quebec, right? I mean, his chief of staff and the clerk of the Privy Council, and a lot of his very high-profile ministers like Mélanie Joly, François-Philippe Champagne are there. Maybe didn't tell him because the Prime Minister's first language isn't English, and therefore may not, speaking as a banker, he might, when he says austerity, he might be using it interchangeably with another word, like that's like cuts or tightening or fiscal prudence. I heard somebody, I think it was Wayne Long yesterday again, saying, "Well, so I prefer the term fiscal prudence." So he maybe means it just in the term of fiscal prudence, but just yeah, as a banker, we see austerity all the time and not thinking culturally what's there, or not nobody having made him aware how in Canada specifically austérité, you say it in French, evokes certain memories of, I guess, my guess would be of past cost-cutting efforts that had some that were probably very deeply felt in Quebec and not particularly appreciated, as opposed to being on the international scene, with bankers and finance ministers and leaders of France and Belgium and other such nations, and saying austérité around the boardroom table as a matter of fact term. So he might have stepped in a little bit of a landmine by using that word in French. If he specifically means, taking a scalpel and making some strategic cuts to remove some excess fat and things that no longer serve us anymore, that would probably be more fiscal discipline or fiscal responsibility than outright austerity. Because as an as a Canadian who's bilingual, but wasn't raised in Quebec, so I'm not actually understanding the dynamic there yet. I need to find out more. But I remember back in the days of Paul Martin and Jacques Chrétien when they made the cuts, and there was those big cuts and transfers to the provinces specifically. That's what I associate austerity with when those comments are made. So I definitely don't want to see that. But that's generational with my age rate. If you're maybe a little younger, you might associate austerity with what was done after the 2008 financial crisis. If you're a little older than I am, you might associate it with what needed to be done after the crisis in the 80s when the interest rates were really sky high. So it can mean different things for different groups depending um, how old you were and where you were in sort of like in time and country and in your life. The last few times we've had to take on some austerity measures. Now, on the other side, because we have this entire pressure coming from the United States, um, as was the case when, with Great Saint Martin, they were able to bring us along and explain why it is we needed to take some medicine. And, Canadians didn't punish them for that. They made the case, they treated us like we were intelligent and like we were grown-ups and able to handle difficult and bad news, and we are. And that's a way that politicians often underestimate the public by assuming that um, they're not able to handle bad news or not able to handle tough subjects. And we are, because if we are brought along and people are transparent and are building the case over time, you can't just say it once. These are types of things that you have to repeat over and over again. But we can be brought along. So I think most Canadians understand and have understood for some time now that there is going to have to be some pain, some belt tightening, maybe a bit of suffering to come. But how much, how will it be spread out? Will everybody be asked to take their fair share, or will it be dumped more on one group? That's the stuff that needs yet to be figured out. But it seems that the national psyche is at least a little bit ready for it at the moment, and that would certainly make his job a little easier. But you still have to be very communicative and proactive in your communications if you can bring people along on this type of project. So we'll see what future developments there are with regard to that. But hopefully, the combination of all of these things together, we will start to get a bigger picture, better picture of what they look like around budget time. All right, moving on to what was going on in Alberta with the book ban. Well, it's not a book ban. I almost like think of that Saturday Night Live skit. It's not a tumor. It's not a book ban. I think you have to be my age or a little older to remember that one. Danielle Smith put out her "It's Not a Book Ban" order, and as we had mentioned on the show, what was written in the order was not, she claims, after she got blowback, what she intended, and then pretended to be mad at everybody else who had viciously complied with her order. I still personally believe, because I believe she's Machiavellian enough to do this, that she saw what Doug Ford has been doing in Ontario with the school boards and wanted to get a little piece of that action. And this was her setup for that. Put out this order, expect school boards and librarians to protest and find a way to keep more books on the shelves than she would have wanted. Then go to the mic and complain about vicious under-compliance. And maybe, as she mentioned, well, if they're going to viciously comply, we need to hold their hand. So maybe that line was already prepared. Well, if they're going to viciously under-comply, I guess we're going to need to hold their hand, and then use that as a pretext to come and start taking over school boards. But it seems that school boards have decided to give her exactly what it is that she asked for in the order, and that made her mad because that put a wrench in her plan. Just a theory. Not a theory, sorry, just a hypothesis. But that is my thinking. And then claimed that she would be able to have, because her intention was so clear, that she would be able to have another order, or revised order, out in hours. And then, of course, we showed you that tweet from the breakdown from last Thursday, stating, sit in a few hours, eh? Chicks watch in Thursday. And then there was supposed to be an announcement at another point coming, and that everybody had gathered and was waiting. Everybody was there for it. And it was only 20 minutes after the announcement was supposed to have been made that the Premier's office sent out a note stating, oh, there will be no announcement today. It will be done Monday. So on Thursday, people were already checking their watch in Thursday. And turns out that she was going to need until Monday, which gives an impression of just how clear her intention was now, doesn't it? If her intention was so easy to translate into word on paper, why could she not get it done the first time? Why could she not get it quickly resolved? Why, after setting a date to announce it that was way beyond a few hours, more than 70 hours, at that point, announcing, that nope, not today and Monday. For someone whose intention was allegedly so clear and simple to understand that she could not comprehend how it is the school boards could have so viciously complied and got it so wrong. Sure took her a long time to find a way to translate it down to paper. Didn't it? Didn't it? So, the intention probably wasn't as clear. Probably it wasn't so much about the books, and it probably wasn't so much about protecting kids from smut. So we got a little bit of news yesterday with regard to that, and I have to say that it is pretty much as we had predicted based on the things that Danielle Smith had been saying, because as you know, how to put it, she can't stop running her mouth. She just can't. And started pretzeling herself, right? People started talking about passages in Atlas Shrugs, for example. And there are passages in there where there's mention of touching breasts or putting one's face between one's breasts, and other things in there. And that, to Danielle Smith, even though it met the definition that was in the initial written order, that to her was not smut. And in fact, she was suggesting that maybe some Ayn Rand should be some mandatory reading. And then you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, so you're don't have a problem with the kids being exposed to that if it comes from Ayn Rand, but you do if it's in a graphic novel. So it seems that she went all the way on her initial deflection, that she only intended talking about images, which makes me think of another moment. Anyway, I won't say it here because I'm digressing. So according to Janet French of CBC News, this is now the ban. And I'm not sure this is going to clean up the mess. Alberta's revised rules on books in school will prohibit works containing explicit images of sexual acts, but not written descriptions of the same, according to a new ministerial order published on Monday. So in other words, you can read about smut that Danielle Smith finds objectionable. You just can't see any visual representations of the smut that Danielle Smith finds objectionable. Are you confused yet? The original ministerial order issued in July asked school employees to remove library materials that depicted sexual acts, including a written passage, quote. That prompted Edmonton Public Schools to assemble a list of 226 books to remove from shelves and classrooms, including well-known works as Handmaid's Tale, The Color Purple, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, The Godfather, and Jaws. The uproar over the school board's list of Alberta Education and Child Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides to last week hit let's try that again because that came out wrong in terms of pacing. The uproar over the school board's list forced Alberta Education and Childcare Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides to last week hit pause to allow government officials to take a second look at the rules. That's better. Quote, "We want to ensure that material that has extremely graphic and explicit visual depictions of sexual activities is not made available at school libraries. That's been our concern from the very beginning, and the updated ministerial order really focuses on that concern. The new ministerial order removes written passage and adds visual depiction." Quote, "Visual depiction means a visual or graphic representation such as a drawing or painting, an illustration, a photographic or digital image, or a video file," the ministerial order reads. Books containing graphics of bodies for a non-sexual purpose such as anatomy book are exempt. The first clause of the new ministerial order acknowledges the importance of student access to, quote, "classic literary works." The Edmonton School Board listed Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley as examples of books that would be banned. The new order removes any distinctions based on students' ages, removing a caveat that would have allowed high school students to access non-explicit sexual content that vaguely describes a sexual act. Parents for Choice in Education was involved in getting the government to enact the book rules after flagging from graphic novels. Executive Director John Hilton O'Brien told CBC in an interview he's not entirely satisfied with the revisions. Quote, "One of the reasons there's trouble in the text is that what this sort of literature sometimes tries to do is to invite the reader to imagine themselves participating in the sexualized activity," he said. "Where that activity is made very explicit in description, you can see some meaningful harm happening." He said the ministerial order is technically not a book ban because the province isn't prohibiting children from bringing books from home. Really? Really? It's like, the teacher, if you bring a book with smut from home and you're only reading it for yourself and not showing it to your classmates, if the teacher doesn't take it away from you, it's not a book ban. Really? That's what you're going with? Oh my God. The gymnastics people will do. Jeez. Oh my God. Wow. They'll say anything. Okay. Wow. Ugh. Okay, I can't believe that. Instead, it said it provides a layer of transparency where school boards need to disclose what is on the library shelves. The government also pushed back a deadline for all Alberta schools to comply with the rules, giving them until January 5th, 2026, instead of the original October 1st requirement. No word yet on whether or not there will be funding to help libraries and to comply with the order. But of course, it seems that the workload has now decreased as a result. However, all school boards, charter, and independent schools in Alberta must send the Education Minister's office a list of all material they plan to remove from libraries by the end of October. Nicolaides told reporters this requirement was so the province can provide oversight and guidance to schools and that the province has no plans to publish the list of removed books. So if there are any books that are going to be removed, you won't get to know which ones they are because the province won't publish the list. And now this new rule applies to all ages, so there's no distinction between kids 14 and over and 14 and under. And pardon me, I have to sneeze. Sorry about that. And also here, so yes, no publication of the books, the list. Sorry, I lost my place with the sneeze. So no plans to publish the list of removed books. Sending a list to the minister first. So I'm guessing they no longer trust the school boards to make the decisions. It's like, write the list of the books you want to ban and send them to me so I can take a check first. And possibly creating a situation for themselves. Imagine that, and this is probably the reason for why they don't want to publish the list. Imagine if January 5th, 2026 comes along, and because it's no longer written passages, and there's only those 4 graphic novels. If there's nothing else, what if there's every school board sends something that says we actually have nothing on our shelves that fits the description. That would be highly embarrassing for the government who spent all this time, this effort, and money trying to make this happen for no reason, because there was no such content on the shelves. Because they've made it only about pictures now and not anything that's written, every book that doesn't have pictures, they don't have to review at all. So again, creating the possibility that there might be very few or even no titles that now meet the new description. Hence, we're not going to publish the list, because if we published a list that had nothing on it, then people might start asking, well, what the hell did we do this for? And that would be embarrassing now, wouldn't it? They are so terrible at this. Oh my God, they're awful at this. Okay. Oh boy. Geez. Wow. These people. Nicolaitis told reporters this requirement was so the province can provide oversight and guidance to schools, and that the province has no plans to publish the list of removed books. The first order took effect July 4th and was prompted by advocacy groups lobbying the minister to remove 4 graphic novels from schools. The books, which have also been the subject of some bans in the United States, include depictions of nudity, sexual assault, and child and sex acts. When CBC News obtained a copy of the Edmonton School Board list and portions of it leaked online last month, Board Chair Julie Kushik said division employees were following the province's rules and encouraged anyone with concerns to contact the government. The proposed book ban led to educators, librarians, authors, and civil liberties advocates to accuse the Alberta government of censorship. NDP education critic Amanda Chapman said the updated order is no improvement. Quote, "It turns out that all that time and resources were completely wasted. Schools will now have to redo the entire process, so they have to go back, do all that work again with the minister's new rules. There's a reason that governments don't usually wade into censorship, right? It's very murky waters that they're trying to tread." Glynis Lieb, executive director of the Firefly Institute for Gender and Sexual Diversity, said she's concerned the order could disproportionately affect 2S LGBTQ plus representation. Quote, "What it does is create confusion, create chaos, create a message of abnormality that is very toxic for our children and has no productive outcome at all," she said. Lieb said children are more likely to get sexually explicit content from the internet rather than the school library. And that's another thing that there, people are talking about. It's like, why are you so, if they are going to access this information because they're curious, wouldn't you want them to access it in the format of some type of book that has been previewed by librarians and all that type of stuff, and rather than just going around and finding it on the internet? I really don't know what to say, particularly on that one, because there's half of me that says, well, yes, they've seen all this anyway before they even see it in a book that they'll get from the library, so why is everybody panicking? But then it's sort of like, yeah, but I mean, just because you can't get it elsewhere doesn't mean that you necessarily have to get it here. I can see that as a as an argument being made here. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith accused the school boards of, as we mentioned, vicious compliance, and accused the school board of being overzealous in its application of the rules, rather than the minister having been overzealous in his writing of the order. Right? Because I mean, that's what happened. If Danielle Smith only intended images and the order had all those other formats, then wouldn't the excess of zeal have been on the part of the people who wrote the order, and not the people who implemented it? But of course, everybody else's fault, and Danielle always has to be the victim, right? So this was done to her. Right? That's the framing. Some teachers, meanwhile, posted pictures of bare or covered classroom bookshelves on social media, saying they didn't have the time at the start of the school year to catalog their classroom libraries as required. The new order says schools must let parents know what's in those classroom libraries. Oh, great. Yeah, because that's not going to prompt stuff. Nicolaitis said that doesn't mean teachers have to prepare a list. how do you let people know what's in the classroom libraries if you're not preparing? Like, none of this makes sense. Oh, they could snap photos of the collection to share with parents or allow family to peruse shelves in their classrooms, he said. Oh, great. We don't want teachers boxing up their classroom collections, Nicolaides said. Jason Schilling, president of the Alberta Teachers Association, said while the new revisions are an improvement, there needs to be more supports for teachers and staff. Quote, a lot of those books were purchased with the teacher's own money. It's disappointing and shameful to me that we didn't have any kind of clarity moving into the start of the school year that saw teachers take such extreme steps of getting rid of materials. As before, Alberta schools will still be required to create and maintain a public listing of all literature available, with the exception of teachers' classrooms, libraries. Schools also need to adopt by January a policy for when a student, parent, or staff member wants to review literary materials. Edmonton Public School Board told CBC in a statement that its initial list of banned books was made in good faith based off the original order, but it would make revisions based on the new order. Quote, as always, the Board of Trustees continues to value collaborative working relationships with the province and families in support of school libraries that serve the educational needs of students, the statement reads. So it seems that based on these rules, every Kevin and Karen who is absolutely convinced that teachers are telling their children, you could be the other gender if you want to, and yeah, we actually really encourage you to go and change your gender, which is happening nowhere, can say, yeah, you know what, I want to come into the classroom and take a look at these books myself, and yeah, I'm going to give my own, I am going to be the person, the sole arbiter of what is considered smut. So let me into your classroom so I can take my time seeing all the filth that you're exposing my kids to. That is going to be easy to manage. That's going to put teachers in a wonderful position. That definitely, in no instance, will compromise anybody's safety, because the people that are anti-everything are not known at all to be unreasonable. They're not known at all to be aggressive. Yeah, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? This pretzeling of Danielle Smith with regard to this has even had the Calgary Herald's Don Braid, who's normally in the pocket for Danielle Smith, asking some questions. He writes, after subjecting Alberta to a reputational pounding, the UCP government has come to its senses on book banning in schools. But will they admit a mistake? Not on your life. Will they concede that international scorn had anything to do with the screeching reversal? Not a chance. Did they do it by choice on World Literacy Day, which happened to fall on Monday? They didn't seem to know it exists. A new ministerial order still bans graphic visual depictions of explicit sex from schools for students of all ages. The big changes come down to one little word, visual. Written depictions of sex are no longer banned. All the mandates around age groups and age-appropriate screening are gone. Novels, poetry, and classic literature works containing written explicit content can remain in schools, the news release states. Yeah, that'll make the anti-everything parents real happy. Quote, the revised order will ensure that classic literary works remain in school libraries while materials with explicit visual depictions of sexual acts do not end up in the hands of children, Education Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides said. Written descriptions of explicit sex are now okay for any age. Advanced grade 3 readers could plunge into 50 Shades of Grey. They shouldn't, of course, and surely won't in any Alberta classroom, but this is what always happens with ideological censorship. The censors dig their own hole and then get buried in contradictions and side effects. This whole thing was an inept attack on an inflated problem to please a vocal segment of the UCP base. The policy now shrinks to what Nicolaides says was the core goal all along, banning highly explicit visual images that are found in some graphic novels. To prove their point, the government once again sent reporters all the images in question. Those pictures should be banned from schools, damn right, but it's downright icky that the government is the one that keeps sending them out 3 times by my count. Thank you. Somebody mentioned it, because you have all these advocates online. They're going, well, these are the images. And I'm like, gee, these images that you don't want kids to see in books, that you are claiming you don't want to see in books, you just put online for every kid to access through your Twitter feed. Dumbass. It's just, these people are not smart. If you don't want kids to see these images, maybe you should not be circulating them on internet where everybody can access them while you're trying to make your point. You shouldn't be the publisher of those images that you claim you don't want kids to see. God damn. It's like when I saw that pro-trans protest where everybody was accusing people of wanting to sexualize kids, and they're protesting, but Alanis Morissette's song "You Oughta Know" is playing in the background that has the words, "Are you thinking of me when you fuck her?" Maybe you don't want to use that song while trying to make a point that you're not trying to sexualize kids. Maybe. Just, you need to think these things through. Nicolaides' first order subjected Alberta to international shaming after the Edmonton Public School Board produced a list of great novels that could be banned under the order. Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale was on the list, so were stories by Alice Munro, the Canadian who won a Nobel Prize for Literature but was too racy for our provincial prigs. Atwood made fun with a new short story, which we read on the show. It could not be more obvious that the unwanted attention was a major driver behind the government shift. Nicolaides was asked directly if the scorn prompted the reversal. "No, I don't think so," he said. "There was just a misunderstanding of what government was trying to do." He was then, maybe there was a misunderstanding because, again, you guys want to admit fault, but you guys did not write the order well. You were misunderstood because you were not clear. The onus to be clear is on you, Minister, Premier. Just saying. My God. He was then asked why he didn't admit that the government made a mistake. Again, the answer is no, not happening. The government just wanted to crystallize and clarify. Unfortunately, we have to provide even more clarity. No, not even more. You have to provide some. Because the order you put out did not at all reflect what you claim your intentions were. You didn't have to provide more clarity. You had to provide clarity. Period. You had not provided any yet. From a communications viewpoint, the whole business was handled most oddly. Usually officials brief reporters under time embargo and the minister later holds a public news conference. This time, Nicolaides spoke during the telephone conference with his remarks to be published when the embargo lifted. As a result, there's no video of him flailing around as he tries to talk his way out of this fiasco without taking any blame. Ouch! And this is, pardon me, again, a gentleman who's normally very supportive of this government. And in fact, on Friday, he wrote something else that I'm also going to read to you because I don't know if he's just seen light, but there's definitely a change in tone here. And this one is called "Trudeau's Long Gone, but Look Who's Virtue Signaling Now." Former Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was often blasted for his smarmy progressive virtue signaling. That's gone now. But in Alberta, the void is nicely filled by smarmy conservative virtue signaling, or like I like to call it, conservative lack of virtue signaling. The UCP's school library book ban is exactly that. It's a political play that starts from a grain of truth and escalates to high emotion and division. So is the law that prohibits trans girls from playing on school sports teams. Trudeau would recognize the tactic in both cases. He almost pioneered it in Canadian politics. The leader raises the issue, inflates it beyond reality, and watches the base gather around in ecstasy. The UCP merely flips the same coin. Premier Danielle Smith's government has inflicted these noisy causes on school districts. The boards have been forced to do a lot of work enabling provincial laws and orders, just what they need with a teacher's lockout or strike looming. School boards will now require proof that a kid was female at birth if someone suspects and reports that child is trans. And that one, again, welcome to the era, Alberta, of, yeah, that girl is too good. She must be trans. Somebody check her pants. That girl's so good, I can't make the team. Or so good, my child can't make the team. There must be something wrong with her. Or the age of, that girl does not fit my personal description of femininity. Check her pants. That's what there's nothing, I don't know if there's anything in these rules that say, do you need to have a certain standing to make a complaint? Do you need anything other than just a hunch? Or anything other than being upset that your kid didn't make the team and somebody else's kid did? How much evidence or proof of your suspicion do you need to have before you can legitimately demand that someone have to prove their gender? And again, as a proof that this is not about kids, right? And not about safety or anything. We're worried about female to male transgenderism participating in girl sports, but we are also blocking access to puberty blockers or whatnot that would stop the testosterone. So they're actually creating a situation where nobody of that age could actually get the gender affirming care that would make it such, if people are afraid of a strength difference, that would not be a factor. There are no kids fully transitioning, with maybe some possible exception of kids who are visibly presenting as intersex, but there's probably no kids who are transitioning from one gender to another prior to the age of 18, especially not under the new rules. So that's no longer a factor. And nobody is worried, right, when it is the female to male trans kid who wants to go play in boy sports. Nobody's worried about their safety or protection. If a girl wants to play with the boys and the girl gets hurt, well, that's her own damn fault. But if a boy wants to play with the girls and the girls get hurt, well, then it's the boy's fault. Because, of course, they refer to them as, the other gender rather than as a them or they or the gender with which they identify. So they're not caring about the safety of all girls, right? If a female to male transgender child is a girl to them and not a guy, nobody's concerned about her safety when she goes on the soccer pitch against the other boys. They're only worried in one direction, but there's danger to kids either way if people are actually worried about physical safety because someone may be too strong. But hey, if you're a girl that has a pixie haircut, or if you're a girl that happens to have a bit of a lower voice, or if you're a girl that happens to have a thicker build, hey, you might have to prove. Again, we just need to get government out of our libraries and government out of our pants. Critics call this a gross invasion of privacy. More broadly, social laws that encourage people to formally rat on each other can have ugly consequences. They're a prime tool of dictatorships. This is a minor issue affecting just a few people that has been inflated and trumpeted for years by a strident element of the UCP base, and now it's going to affect way more than a few people. It's going to affect half the child population. You just have to be suspected of. You don't actually have to be. And anybody can claim that you are. This is not going to end up well. This is not going to end up well. The status of a trans kid in sports demands careful and humane handling at the school level, not a grand virtue signaling campaign. Then there's the school library book ban, which is beloved by Smith's right-hand boosters, many of the same people who are obsessed with trans kids in sports. Outright sexually explicit material has no place in school libraries. It should be rooted out, period. And it has been to the degree that it existed in the first place, hence my suggestion or my hypothesis that a list of books would have very few entries on it. But the government couldn't resist pandering to the ideologues who think the problem goes far beyond the libraries. These are folks often homeschooled who believe public schools are hotbeds of sin eagerly encouraged by teachers. The government extended its order to non-explicit sexual content, which led the Edmonton Public Board to list a slew of genuine classics. The uproar over this went international. The government stepped back. Did this hurt Smith with the all-important base? Not likely. She probably won support by accusing the board of vicious compliance. What will happen next still bubbles in government. On that front, a very odd thing occurred Friday. This is the thing that I was mentioning. Reporters were notified that officials would hold an embargoed briefing Friday morning on updated standards for school library materials. As usual, reporters could see the information early by agreeing not to scoop a news release scheduled for 1 p.m. Reporters all over the province waited for emails with the documents and a code to join the phone briefing. The moment passed without a word from the office of Education Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides. About an hour later, we were finally advised that the announcement was delayed until Monday. The way the briefing just vanished was unprecedented in my experience. It begs the question of what's going on in that department. They've got a lot to think about, such as a teacher strike and a lockout notice at any minute. The UCP has other favorite diversions, the attack on bike lanes, the decision to charge most people for COVID vaccines. You might hardly notice that something profoundly worse is happening in Alberta. Alberta's unemployment rate is now 8.4%, the second highest in the country, nearly 3% above Saskatchewan. Partly that's caused by so much migration to Alberta, but there's far worse news. Available jobs fell by 14,000 in August, a downtrend shared by BC and Ontario. We may be headed for very difficult times, especially for youth plagued by low wages, stalled careers, and unemployment. The government has done a brilliant job of deflecting. Albertans will be welcome to ride the virtue pony while the economy craters. Yikes! Don Braid, I don't know. Like I said, if something happened along the way where he just saw the light, but not as much of a champion of Danielle Smith as he has been known to be in the past. Well, let's see how this new mess Danielle Smith has created for herself works out, because now she has a group of angrier parents on the militant side of this, because she pulled back. Yeah. And I'm just, again, there's a lot of people that are even still not convinced that those books actually were on library shelves. They're saying, well, what if somebody came and they put them on there and then said, oh my God, look what we found. I don't know if that's the case. But if somebody was really, really petty and Machiavellian and wanted to create Danielle Smith some problems, I'm sure that they would go into a school library, insert a book or two that had some very explicit written passages on the shelf, take some pictures, say, oh my God, look what I found here. I can't believe this happened. And then all of a sudden, she would have an uproar on her hands. Not that I would recommend that anybody do that. But in 2025, where so many people like to do things that get attention and generate clicks, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody decides to get that idea and try it. Somebody takes on you try to make life miserable for us attitude, well, let us return the favor. This could get rather messy as a result of this policy. I can see so many avenues for things to go wrong. I can see avenues for teachers to get assaulted, as I mentioned, if a parent demands to come in and see some titles and find something that they don't like, because their standards are going to be different than the one that's in the order, especially if they're already militant and predisposed to wanting to vilify teachers. There's a lot of bad that can come from this. There's a lot of bad that can come from this. All right, kids and cubs, before we go, there is some international news about democracy going on. And we will start in Japan, kids and cubs, where Japan has seen 3 prime ministers in 5 years because the prime minister of Japan has decided they are stepping aside. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced his resignation on the 7th, according to the Associated Press. He announced that he would step down following growing calls from his party to take responsibility for a historic defeat in July's parliamentary election. Ishiba, who took office last October, had resisted demands from mostly right-wing opponents within his own party for more than a month, saying such a step would cause a political vacuum when Japan faces key challenges in and outside the country. The resignation came one day before his Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, was to decide whether to hold an early leadership election, a virtual no-confidence motion against him, if approved. Ishiba said during a televised press conference he would start a process to hold a party leadership vote to choose his replacement, and there was no need for Monday's decision. If the Prime Minister had stayed on, he would have inevitably struggled to manage his divided party and minority government. In July, Ishiba's ruling coalition failed to secure a majority in the 248-seat upper house in a crucial parliamentary election, further shaking the stability of his government. The loss added to an earlier election defeat in the lower house, where the party-led coalition had lost a majority. His decision came after his meetings on Saturday with Agriculture Minister Shinjiro Koizumi and his perceived mentor, former Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, who apparently suggested Ishiba's resignation ahead of Monday's vote. Ishiba had previously insisted on staying, stressing the need to avoid a political vacuum at a time when Japan faces big challenges, including U.S. tariffs and their impact on the economy, rising prices, rice policy reforms, and growing tension in the region. Since the LDP's adoption last week of its review of the election laws, which called for a complete overhaul of the party, requests for an early leadership vote or for Ishiba's resignation before Monday's results have gained traction. A conservative heavyweight, Taro Aso, known for his anti-Ishiba stance, as well as a minister and several deputy ministers in the Ishiba cabinet, have requested an early vote, prompting others to follow suit. Former Health Minister Norihisa Tamura told an NHK talk show earlier Sunday that the best way to stop the party divide and move forward is for Ishiba to settle the dispute before Monday's vote, urging his resignation. The party has already been distracted from necessary work on economic measures and on figuring out ways to gain opposition support in the next parliamentary session, Tamura said. With Ishiba stepping down as party leader, the LDP is expected to set a date for its party presidential election, likely to be held in early October. Possible candidates include Koizumi, as well as ultra-conservative former Economic Security Minister Sanae Takeishi and Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi, a moderate and the protege of former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Lacking a majority in both houses, the next LDP leader will have to work with the main opposition parties to get bills passed, experts say, or else face constant risks of no-confidence motions. The opposition parties, however, are too splintered to form a big coalition to topple the government. In recent weeks, Ishiba successfully got U.S. President Donald Trump to lower the tariff rates that his administration imposed on Japan from 25% to 15%. There's some interesting bit of news, so it is possible. Okay. Ishiba also said that he has had his chief trade negotiator, Ryoshi Akazawa, deliver a letter to Trump stating his wish to work with him to create the golden era of Japan-U.S. alliance, inviting the American leader to visit Japan. Ishiba's top aide, LDP Secretary General Hiroshi Moriyama, a key figure who negotiated with main opposition leaders to help achieve legislation since the Prime Minister took office, had also expressed his intention to step down on September 2nd over the election loss. Though Ishiba hasn't granted his request, Moriyama's departure would have dealt a blow to the Prime Minister. So there is going to be a new leader in Japan. In France, there was also a big development. Now I think David Moskrop put it in interesting context on Twitter yesterday, saying about France, because there was a tweet that came out saying, I think it was like French government falls or French government in turmoil or something of the sort. And David Moskrop was saying, like, This could be from just about any year since 1789. French government collapses. But it is not 1789. It is indeed 2025. And this is according to Euronews. Prime Minister François Bayrou lost a crucial confidence vote in Parliament. And this is by Sofia Kasenskova of Euronews. The centrist leader, who became France's fourth head of government in less than 2 years, so 3 prime ministers in 5 years in Japan, fourth head of government in France in less than 2 years, obviously lots of turmoil going on these days, lost his gamble after calling an unprecedented confidence vote over his austerity plans to rein in the country's ballooning public deficit. French Prime Minister François Bayrou and his minority government have collapsed after losing a crucial confidence vote in Parliament on Monday. Of the 573 lawmakers who sit in the National Assembly, France's lower house of parliament, 364 voted against Bayrou, 194 voted for, and there were 15 abstentions. A government source said Bayrou, the first prime minister in modern France's history to be removed in a confidence vote rather than a no confidence vote, will submit his resignation on Tuesday. The Élysée Palace said President Emmanuel Macron had taken note of the results of the vote and said a new prime minister would be named in the next few days. Bayrou, appointed less than a year ago after conservative politician and former Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier was ousted, lost his gamble after calling an unprecedented confidence vote over his controversial 2026 budget plan. French President Emmanuel Macron is now forced to hunt for the fifth prime minister since his second term began in 2022, one that would be able to shepherd a budget through France's fragmented parliament. Marine Le Pen, leader of the far-right national rally, said on Monday, quote, "The real reset would be the resignation of the French president." Talking about the next steps, Le Pen added, quote, "The president has only one option, to call new elections and let the country choose." However, Emmanuel Macron said that he does not consider new snap elections as his first choice. Beyond the corridors of the country's institutions, public patience is wearing thin. Several grassroots groups have called for nationwide strikes on Wednesday, while France's main trade unions are preparing strikes and protests on the 18th of September against the looming budget cuts. At the heart of the showdown were France's fragile public finances. Last year's deficit reached 5.8% of GDP, nearly double the EU ceiling of 3%, while national debt now stands at more than $3.3 trillion, roughly 114% of economic output. So, when Pierre is telling you that everything is broken here, he's not looking around the world and seeing how well we are doing comparatively. Bayrou has argued that drastic cuts are unavoidable, putting forward a plan to slash 44 billion euros in spending by 2026, partly by scrapping 2 public holidays. Our vital prognosis is at stake. France has not had a balanced budget in 51 years, Bayrou warned during his opening speech, pointing to what he called the incredible succession of blows of fate since 2020, from the coronavirus pandemic and the war in Ukraine to soaring energy prices and inflation. So that is what is going on in France. And it'll be interesting to see how Macron pulls himself out of this. In Norway, there was an election. And according to Thomson Reuters news wire, Norway's minority Labour Party government won a second term in power on Monday, while the populist right achieved its best ever result, official counts showed, in an election dominated by concerns over rising living costs and wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Incumbent Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, I'm going to guess that it's the O with the line in between, and I'm not actually sure how you pronounce that sound in the Norwegian alphabet or Norwegian language. So incumbent Prime Ministers Jonas Gahr Støre's Labour and 4 smaller left-leaning parties won 87 seats, above the 85 needed for majority, with 99% of ballots counted. Støre, 65, will remain heavily reliant on his smaller allies, however, to pass major legislation such as fiscal budgets. To get their backing, he will likely face tough discussions over issues such as tax hikes for the wealthy, future oil exploration, and divestments from Israel companies by Norway's $2 trillion U.S. sovereign wealth fund. Støre will continue as prime minister, with much more difficult parliamentary situation in which he is dependent on 5 parties to govern. Jonas Stein, an associate professor in political science at the University of Tromsø, told Reuters. Despite the left's victory, Monday's ballot showed a shift further to the right among conservative voters, with the populist anti-immigration Progress Party of Sylvi Listhaug, 47, making its best ever showing in an election. Progress secured 48 seats in the 169-seat parliament, more than double its allocation from 4 years ago, as the party's promise of large tax cuts appeared to have resonated with many voters. This Taug, who cites Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, oh my God, as her role models, campaigned on what she said was wasteful public spending on areas such as international aid and subsidies to green energy. Well, she's bad news. Quote, young people today are much more right-wing than earlier. I think the Progress Party has won a huge part of the youth vote, especially among young men, said Erik Leuke, a fellow at Civitas, an Oslo-based liberal think tank. None of the right-wing parties that won seats, including former Prime Minister Erna Solberg's Conservatives, have sought the backing of U.S. President Donald Trump, unlike some of their counterparts elsewhere in Europe. Stora welcomed the results, playing down any shift to the right. Quote, this is a signal to outside Norway that social democracy can also win despite a right-wing wave, he told a jubilant crowd of Labour supporters chanting 4 more years. Border concerns over the conflict in Ukraine and an aggressive Russia, which shares a border with Norway in the Arctic, have given a boost to the left in recent months after former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, 66, joined Stor's cabinet. Many Norwegians saw the decision as a safeguard in case of a new armed conflict, given Stoltenberg's decade-long tenure until October of last year as head of the Western Military Alliance. Some 59% of Norwegians believe a new war in Europe is likely within the next decade, up from 55% last year, according to a survey by the Peace Research Institute of Oslo. Also looming large in the final weeks of the election was the war in Gaza, with Stor's smaller allies calling for Norway's sovereign fund, the world's largest and major source of the country's wealth, to divest further from Israel companies. Since June 30th, the fund has divested from more than 24 Israeli companies following media reports that it had built a stake in a jet engine company that provides maintenance for Israeli fighter jets. Some parties on the left have questioned whether the country is in effect contributing to violations of international law by investing in companies active in occupied Palestinian territories. Israel denies contravening international rules. Also at stake in the election is the future path of the oil industry in Norway, which replaced Gazprom as Europe's top gas supplier after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Norway's role is set to grow further as the European Union plans to phase out the use of Russian gas by 2027, but some of Store's junior allies want to gradually phase out oil exploration, which could limit new gas fields. And finally, kits and cubs, and it would seem that I haven't been able to confirm this, but I saw a graph somewhere indicating that it seems that the Conservatives were widely in the lead leading up to the election, like in the months leading, and then at some point there was a switch, and the more Liberals party took over the Conservatives, similar to what happened here in Canada, actually. And I don't know, again, if it was just stuff going on with Donald Trump and, of course, the addition of Jens Stoltenberg coming in, somebody that was internationally well-known and well-regarded coming in and adding the backing, just like here we had Mark Carney, although Stoltenberg didn't come in as leader of the party, but just to shore up the cabinet. But some similar dynamics to what we just saw in Canada may have taken place in Norway. And finally, in Nepal, the Nepal's prime minister has resigned after violent protests over a social media ban and government corruption spread, according to the Associated Press. Nepal's prime minister resigned on Tuesday as protests against a short-lived ban on social media grew increasingly violent and expanded into broader criticism of his government and accusations of corruption among the Himalayan country's political elite. Demonstrations led by young people angry about the blocking of several social media sites gripped the country's capital a day earlier, and police opened fire on the crowds, killing 19 people. The ban was lifted Tuesday, but the protests continued, with demonstrators setting fire to the homes of some of Nepal's top leaders and the parliament building. The airport in the capital of Kathmandu was shut, and army helicopters ferried some ministers to safe places. Wow, the Nepalese don't mess around. As the protests intensified, Prime Minister Kagda Prasad Oli, 73, said he was stepping down immediately. Quote, in view of the adverse situation in the country, I have resigned effective today to facilitate the solution to the problem and to help resolve it politically in accordance with the Constitution, Oli said in his resignation letter to President Ramchandra Paudel. The demonstrations began after the government blocked platforms including Facebook, X, and YouTube, saying the companies had failed to register and submit to government oversight. But even after the sites came back online, the rallies continued, fueled by anger over the deaths of protesters at the hand of police and growing frustration with the political elite in the nation wedged between China and India. In particular, many young people are angry that the children of political leaders, so-called Nepo kids, seem to enjoy luxurious lifestyles and numerous advantages while most youth struggle to find work. With youth unemployment running at 20% last year, according to the World Bank, the government estimates more than 2,000 young people leave the country every day to seek work in the Middle East or Southeast Asia. Quote, "I'm here to protest about the massive corruption in our country," said Vishnu Tapachetri, a student. "The country has gotten so bad that for us youth, there is no grounds for us to stay." On Tuesday, local media and videos shared on social media showed protesters attacking the residences of the top political leaders in and around Kathmandu. In addition to Oli's private home, the houses set on fire included those of Sher Bahadur Deuba, leader of the largest party in the Nepali Congress, President Ramchandra Pudel, Home Minister Ramesh Lemhak, and leader of the Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist Pushpa Kamal Dahal. A private school owned by Deuba's wife, Arzu Deuba Rana, who is the current foreign minister, was also set on fire. The mass protests and attack on Parliament Monday began as opposition to the ban on social media platforms, but were fueled by growing frustration and dissatisfaction against the political parties among the people who blamed them for corruption. Curfew was imposed in the capital, and other cities and schools in Kathmandu were closed, but several protests continued in the capital despite the measures. Several widely used social networks, including Facebook, X, and YouTube, were blocked in the Himalayan nation last week after failing to comply with the new requirement to register and submit to government oversight. Monday's rallies against the ban swelled to tens of thousands of people in Kathmandu as crowds surrounded the parliament building before police opened fire on the demonstrators. And as we mentioned, 19 people were killed. Quote, "Stop the ban on social media, stop corruption, not social media," the crowds chanted, waving national flags. Before his resignation, Oli said in a statement he was forming an investigating committee to submit a report in 15 days, and that compensation would be given for the lives lost and free treatment for the wounded. The proposal has been widely criticized as a tool for censorship and for punishing government opponents who voiced their protests online. The bill includes asking the companies to appoint a liaison office or a point of contact in the country. Rights groups have called it an attempt by the government to curb freedom of expression and fundamental rights. The registration requirement applied to about 24 social networks widely used in Nepal. Neither Google, which owns YouTube, nor Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, responded to requests for comment from the Associated Press. Elon Musk's X platform did not respond either. TikTok, Viber, and 3 other platforms have registered and operated without interruption. Nepal in 2023 banned TikTok for disrupting, quote, "social harmony, goodwill, and diffusing indecent materials." The ban was lifted last year after TikTok's executive pledged to comply with local laws, including a ban of pornographic sites that was passed in 2018. So there you go. Japan, Norway, France, and Nepal. Lots of stuff going on and changes in leadership. Democracy makes itself felt, and pushback gets people to react, as we have seen. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We appreciate it when you do, especially when you send a little something of yours with it, stating why it is it resonated with you or why you recommend it. Now, if you would like us to help you, kids and cubs, we like to do that because sometimes you are on the go and don't have time to watch the True North Eager Beaver. You need to be places. Well, thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl, kids and cubs, we are portable, lightweight, aerodynamic, all the good stuff. Just pop us in your ears and take us with you. That way you can keep on making good things happen while keeping yourself informed. Just scan this QR code that has appeared on the screen. Thank you, Ray Girl, for making it available. Or go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Again, podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Thank you so very much. Now, if you would like to help us in other ways, please take the good advice of Kit Elaine and Kit Cassie and come on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we are now at, we've crossed 22,000, so we're 22,100. There's 300 new subscribers over the past little bit, so thank you so much. We're not used to growing that fast over the course of 2 days, but we will definitely take it. So thank you for everybody who's clicking on subscribe. But please do come down there, and while you're there, click on our like and share buttons as well. We've got 3 for you to play with, so why not? It helps us with the algorithm, so thank you. And if you would like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, please do go to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, to make a contribution, or as we call it, an enthusiastic expression of encouragement to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. because a moist beaver is a happy beaver, and you have to keep your beaver moist. So there you go. Anything that you can put into the tip jar is very helpful, and we appreciate your contributions. Now, if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, you can make your contribution by using our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, and we have a direct bank transfer, and that avoids your transaction going through the USCE Tech Bros, who take a cut of the money, which means we get 100% of your donation. So thank you if you're contributing that way. Kids and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do, forever-canadian.ca is the website if you live in Alberta and you want to put your name to that petition that wants a citizen initiative promoting Alberta remaining part of Canada. Also, if you want to financially contribute to the organization because they need some help, if you want to volunteer yourself, sign up as a canvasser or pledge to sign the petition if you haven't yet, please go there. I'm sure Mr. Thomas Lukasik would be very happy to hear from you, as well as the entire team of very dedicated volunteers who are doing the good work of democracy there. So please support them. Also, Kids and Cubs, if you want to help our brothers and sisters in Newfoundland and Labrador who have been hit pretty hard by wildfires this season, then the Red Cross has a special appeal going on until September 14th. You can still donate after it, but they do have a special appeal going on where your contribution will be matched dollar for dollar by the federal government. So if you would like to take this moment to maximize your contribution, contact the Red Cross at 1-800-418-1111 via email at wecare@redcross.ca or online at www.redcross.ca to make your donation to help out our fellow countrymen and women. And I definitely appreciate everything that you're able to do there, because Newfoundland and Labradorians have shown such wonderful welcome and hospitality in times of crisis to others that it's definitely not a bad thing to be there for them in theirs. So there you go. Some words of wisdom, Kids and Cubs. I'm a little light on wisdom today, I have to say. So I am simply going to say, if you see something that is not sitting right with you, if you, as we're noticing in Alberta and we're noticing in other countries, pushback, loud and vocal, strident pushback is what appears to get the attention of particularly conservative governments these days. Yeah, make your voices heard. All right. If you're thinking this is not right, somebody should say something. Why not you? Okay. It could be a tough world out there, Kids and Cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. I'm not going to have an Easter egg today because I am expected elsewhere. So the show will just end like that. So at the count of 3, Kids and Cubs, if I may ask you to say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. That would make me very, very happy. On 1, 2, and 3. Oh, yes, that is a lovely sound. A chorus of champions. How can I say no? Here you go, and we'll see you tomorrow. Amour et bisous.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.